So those are just some side notes, man, of being institutionalized. And just speaking about the transition, from, incarceration from prison back to society, man, it's been beautiful, man. It's been so awesome. Normally, if people don't know me and they begin to hear my story and all the time I've done in prison, and just me being home now, I think right now it's like 15 months. I've been home for a little over a year now, so I begin to realize too, it's like, all right, like I'm home now. You know what I mean? There's no more excuses about like me adjusting back to society. It's like, all right, I've been home like a little over a year. But I'm still like, settling in, and I'm still beginning to feel like finally, comfortable and like maybe fully normal and back to society. But just to relate to you as the viewer of how it's been coming home after 12 years in prison. And just to explain real quick, man, I've done 3 prison bids. From 18, I did 2.5 years. I came home, I was only out for 8 months. I went back to prison again. I did 2 years. I came home, I was only out for 6 months. Then I went back to prison again and I did 7 years and 8 months. So that's over 12 years. And from 18 to 31, I've only been in society for 14 months. And right now, at 32 years old, out for 15 months, this is the longest that I've been home, I think, since I was 15 or 16 years old. Um, so, man, like, I obviously missed the majority of my life, pretty much all of my adult life out here in society. I've experienced all of my life experience in prison, incarcerated. So the adjustment, the transition back home, yo, it's been beautiful. It's been awesome. And I think that's a huge advantage for me and for anybody coming home from prison. It's like, man, we can really appreciate life. And man, I think that happened like just it happens naturally, man. Sometimes I try to be intentional about it. I set in my schedule, my structure to where once a week I try to go out and eat by myself. And I do that because I just want to sit back. I just want to enjoy. I go to different like cultural spots. I'll go get like some sushi one week, and I'll go get some food from the Middle East the next week, or I'll go get some Indian food the next week, and I just sit down. I'll enjoy a different culture, different meal, and I just relax. But normally, like if I'm doing Uber or if I'm just driving throughout the city, especially like in the downtown area, Tampa, or other places I haven't been or I'm not really used to, man, I just pull over and I'll stop and I just relax. And I look at the skyline, or especially like downtown Tampa on the River Walk. I just go out there and I'll sit and I just soak everything in, man. And I really just reflect and I just thank God, because I remember just for years and years and years and years of being in prison, like laying on my bunk, man, my rack, just fantasizing and longing for release, or just hanging out with my kids and throwing the football with my son, or going to my daughter's cheerleading game or her basketball game. And of course, like I'm there in the moment, but sometimes like, yo, this naturally, bam, like something will click and I'm just like, dang, bro, like I'll just try to stop in the moment and just like soak it all in and just thank God that I'm finally here. So that happens a lot, man. And I'm just really thankful for just being home and for freedom and society. And as of right now, I'm on parole, which in the state of Florida, man, it's not parole. It's CRD, is conditional release. So therefore, like you get sentenced to like 9 years, which I got sentenced to 8 years, 11 months. And you get good time, gang time, which means you only have to do 85%, which I got all my gang time. But then when you're released based upon your charges, which mine were violent, you have to do the rest of your gang time on conditional release. It's like parole, probation. You know what I mean? You got a parole officer. You got to check in every month. You get drug tested. He checks at your place of residence, like 5 o'clock in the morning, just make sure that you're still there. You got a curfew till 10 o'clock for like your first year out. So I still had supervision over me. And it sucks, you know what I mean? Because you kind of always got this cloud over you, and maybe this, and right now I think I only got like 20 days left. So it's been beautiful. Just the other week, the beginning of this month, I had my last visit at the parole office. So that in itself, man, it was an amazing experience. Praise God. I'm super excited to get off release completely. But yeah, man, the transition has been beautiful, and just coming home and experience society has been amazing, even with the parameters of not being able to, travel without permission and things like that. But I guess a negative side of it too, man, is it's been difficult emotionally, and I think just psychologically at times. especially at first, not really now anymore, but I think when I first came home, there's so many moving factors in my life. And just because, I'm driven, God's given me a vision. I want to be intentional and pursue it with the responsibility that's on me as a father. The difficulty of the distance between my relationship with my kids, seeing that first-handedly when I come home, seeing the distance between me and my kids, the challenges with just running up that bag to get money and to pay bills, provide for my kids, to provide for the vision that God's given me for my businesses, to market my music, so on and so forth. Just the reality of adulting, paying taxes, and all these things that I've never done before. It could be chaotic, it could be stressful, it can be aggravating. So yeah, man, a lot of times, man, it was difficult coming home, and I see myself like really being stressed out. And I think two things, man, I think stick out to me a lot with the transition is especially because I moved to a city that I'm not from, just to be close to a church that I attend, and just want to be plugged in with the community there, and that's where I felt where the Lord was leading me in Tampa. But I think that I felt alone a lot when I first came home. And I really didn't like process it at first until my OG had pointed out. He said, "Bro, maybe it's because you lived like the entirety of your life pretty much like around people. You know what I mean? I got like apartment. I'm living by myself. My kids are in another city, which I see them, weekly, and friends and all that. But it's like coming home, not really knowing people in a new city, um, and just dealing with the stress of life and responsibility, and just to transition back home, just being like emotional and kind of like psychologically difficult. You know what I mean? It's all new. It's all experiences that I wasn't used to. I just felt alone, man. And I think that was difficult at times. Of course, I got friends. I got a great support system, but maybe just because the fact that you don't got somebody sleeping above you on a top rack, or you don't got a celly, or you're not living in a dorm for the people, or what I mean, you can just get up and walk 10 feet to go holler at your homie. You know what I mean? It's just everyone's got lives, everyone's got responsibilities, everybody's got aspirations and a vision and goals and responsibilities. So maybe just coming home and kind of feeling like, man, I'm out here and I'm let to fend for myself. And even though I'm thankful for a great support system, maybe that's how I felt at first. So I think that was like a thought process and just an emotion that I was able to identify coming home, was just like feeling alone. But also too, man, like lacking trust with people, because, prison is a treacherous environment, and everyone's got ulterior motives. And man, all throughout your incarceration, man, you're taught to read people, body language, how people speak, how they're looking at you, how they're looking, if they're making eye contact or not, how they move in the dorm. You profile everybody, you watch everybody the moment they come in the dorm. You know what I mean? Especially if you're new in the dorm, or and new people come in the dorm. You know what I mean? You're always watching, and it's because it's a survival, hostile environment. You got to be on point. You got to be aware. And especially when you come from a lifestyle of the streets of selling drugs and robbing, and you've seen the creep things, you've seen the negative of people, you see what people are capable of, and especially people who can be, considered family or friends or homies. You see, snake stuff all the time. It's nothing new. I think especially being institutionalized, man, you see a lot of stuff, and it can make you numb. You know what I mean? To the violence, to the extortion, to people being taken advantage of. It becomes like your norm. You see the worst. So seeing the worst of people, I think coming home, trying to build healthy relationships, especially for me being involved in ministry, active in church, living in Christian community, or trying to build business relationships. I think maybe my mind is subconsciously bent towards like suspicious of people. You know what I mean? And I really like people I think maybe people are already in a deficit with me, and they gotta like show me otherwise. So that's a psychological, paradigm that I try to be aware of myself, that it's kind of like a negative effect of being institutionalized, but it's, correlating now to my transition that I'm having to, really be aware of, so that way I can have healthy relationships. So yeah, that's a challenge, man, also coming home. But I would say for the viewers out there, man, who got, family and friends that are coming home and want to learn how they can help them, with their transition. And I don't know, man, I don't think there really is any like helpful advice, for you to help them adjust, I'll just say just be patient with them and realize that, yo, they're gonna experience a lot. And just be there for them, help them enjoy it. You know what I mean? And just ride out with them as they go through the process of figuring everything out, of transitioning back home. And a way for you to relate, especially if you've never been to jail, you've never been in prison, you don't know what it's like coming home. You know what I mean? You don't know what it's like to be removed from society for so long and coming home to adjust back to society and back out here in culture. And I think really COVID really helps that, for you or for people who've never been incarcerated. Because I hear that because I was in prison for COVID. Obviously coming out like towards the end of it. Um, but I used to always hear about people like saying that they got social anxiety now. That they've been in the house for so many months, so they've been like excluded from social gatherings and being like social and going to different outings for so long that now they wrestle with social anxiety. And I'm not knocking people who feel that. I mean, I can understand that. I feel you, but I would say if you can relate to that, if you feel that, if you're like, yeah, like I know what it's like being around people now is a little different for me. You know what I mean? Like, all right, take those feelings, and if you can relate to that, now magnify that times like 1,000. You know what I mean? That's what your family member, that's what your homie, that's what, people feel like who've been incarcerated for a long period of time, coming home back into society feel like. I remember whenever I first came home, and I think I went to my son's football game, my daughter's, who was cheerleading at the time as well, that first weekend, and just going to like the football stadium or going to a grocery store, um, man, super overwhelming, crazy overwhelming, just being around so many people. And it's funny too, it makes me think, I remember being in prison and I used to always say, like, man, I can't wait just to get out and go to the grocery store. Like, yo, it's gonna be so beautiful. I can't wait. I'm gonna take my time with the car. I'm gonna be in the grocery store for like 5 hours, 4 or 5 hours, just walking down slowly with the cart, looking at all the new, food they have and everything. I'm just gonna take my time and just select everything and spend a whole bunch of money. But that was not the case at all when I came home. I remember the first time I went to the grocery store, like, yo, just all the options. And it's like, I don't think, like, no, I wasn't thinking that, like, there's too many options. Nah, it's just, I felt overwhelmed. All the people, so much going on. I just went in the store. I'm like, I don't want to be in here. I just want to grab what I needed. I wasn't even like thinking properly to like, you know, to estimate what was the best price or what I really wanted. I just picked what I seen that I knew and just got out of there within like 5, 10 minutes. And it took a while to get used to just going to a grocery store. And even still now today, being home a year, for the most part, like social settings, it's not too bad. But I think maybe around new places and new people, and especially a lot of people, like when I go to like arenas or like maybe the mall at times, I definitely can feel like socially anxious and just out of place. But I remember too coming home, like I used to always think that people could tell I just came home. And I think that's maybe just because I felt like I felt so out of place inwardly. And in my mind, I felt like I didn't belong. So like I projected that's how everybody else like perceived me as well. Um, but as I briefly shared, man, throughout my incarceration, uh, man, I never take back not one day, even though it was extremely difficult, missing the entirety of my kids' childhood, just missing so much in my own life, but as well as my kids and just the pain of being in prison, everything I missed. I wouldn't take back one day, because while I was incarcerated, that's where the Lord has completely transformed my life. And that's where I found my purpose, man. Just to enjoy Christ, to make him known, his call and his purpose upon my life, in ministry, but also as well in music. And I know people, they tend to ask me, what has my experience been like, just navigating through the music industry.